There's a predator in every social ecosystem, and they have a specific type. Not the loudest person in the room, not the most vulnerable, not even the most naive. They hunt for loners. And if you think that's random, you haven't been paying attention.
Watch how it happens. A room full of people, all clustered in their comfortable groups, and there's one person standing apart. Maybe they're by the window with a drink, observing. Maybe they're absorbed in their phone, genuinely content in their solitude. Maybe they're just taking a break from the noise. And like a shark detecting blood in water, the toxic person's attention locks on. They move in with that calculated smile, that disarming charm, that practiced approach that's worked 100 times before. You might think they're being friendly. They're not. They're selecting their next target. The question that keeps psychologists and survivors up at night is simple but chilling. Why loners? Why do toxic, manipulative people consistently seek out those who prefer solitude, who've built peaceful lives away from drama, who've consciously chosen independence over constant connection? The answer reveals something dark about human nature and the specific psychology of people who thrive on control. Loners represent everything toxic people can't stand. Self-sufficiency. Someone who doesn't need external validation is someone who can't be easily controlled through approval and rejection. Someone who's comfortable in silence can't be manipulated through social pressure. Someone who's built a fortress of solitude has also built walls that toxic people see as a personal challenge. And toxic people hate nothing more than someone who doesn't need them. But here's where it gets sinister. Toxic people don't target loners because they think they're weak. They target them because they know loners are often exceptionally strong, and breaking that strength becomes a twisted game. Think about it. Someone who's genuinely comfortable alone has usually developed emotional resilience, critical thinking skills, and a strong sense of self. These are exactly the qualities toxic people want to corrode, because once demolished, they leave behind someone perfect for manipulation. The isolation is what makes loners such attractive targets. Toxic people understand mathematics. A person embedded in a strong social network has witnesses, reality checks, and support systems. Isolate someone or find someone already isolated, and suddenly there are no outside perspectives challenging the distorted reality the toxic person creates. Gaslighting works better in a vacuum. Lies flourish where there's no one to contradict them. Manipulation intensifies when there's no social mirror reflecting back the truth. Loners also typically possess something toxic people desperately crave: inner peace. There's a specific type of contentment that comes from genuine solitude, from being comfortable in your own company, from not needing constant stimulation or validation. Toxic people exist in perpetual internal chaos. They can't sit with themselves. They can't handle silence. They need external drama to avoid internal reflection. And when they encounter someone who's achieved what they never will, the impulse isn't admiration, it's destruction. The approach is methodical. First comes the love bombing. Toxic people shower loners with attention that feels intoxicating precisely because it's unusual. They make the loner feel seen, understood, special. They mirror the loner's interests, values, and worldview with uncanny precision. This isn't coincidence, it's strategy. They've studied their target and are performing whatever role will lower defenses fastest. For someone accustomed to solitude, this sudden, intense connection can feel like finding water in a desert. Then comes the subtle erosion.
The toxic person begins questioning the loner's independence. Your preference for solitude becomes antisocial behavior that needs fixing. Your self-sufficiency becomes stubbornness. Your boundaries become selfishness. Your peace becomes loneliness that only they can cure. They reframe your greatest strengths as flaws, and because you're not surrounded by people reminding you of your worth, their narrative starts replacing your reality. The isolation that once protected the loner now becomes a weapon used against them. Toxic people deliberately drive wedges between loners and their few close connections. They create drama with the loner's friends or family. They demand more time, more attention, more energy, until maintaining other relationships becomes exhausting. They position themselves as the only person who truly understands, the only one who really cares, the only relationship that matters. And slowly, the chosen solitude transforms into enforced isolation. What makes this particularly insidious is that loners often have trauma that led them to solitude in the first place. Maybe they were betrayed by people they trusted. Maybe they grew up in chaotic environments and silence became safety. Maybe they're highly sensitive and solitude is how they protect their energy. Toxic people have a sixth sense for old wounds. They don't need your complete history.
They just need to scratch the surface until they find the scar tissue, and then they know exactly where to apply pressure.
The control mechanism is brilliant in its cruelty. Toxic people offer connection to someone who's learned to live without it, then make that person dependent on the connection, then threaten to withdraw it. The loner who once thrived alone suddenly can't remember how. The person who needed no one now needs the toxic person's approval to feel okay. The sanctuary of solitude becomes a prison of loneliness because the toxic person has redefined what alone means. Loners also tend to be observers, thinkers, people who notice patterns and question narratives. Under normal circumstances, these are exactly the people who'd spot manipulation fastest. But toxic people strike during moments of openness, the rare times when the loner's guard is down, when they've decided to take a chance on connection. The timing is everything. Catch someone during their moment of vulnerability, when they're trying to be less isolated, when they're hoping things might be different this time, and even the most perceptive person can miss the red flags waving right in front of them. There's also a darker element, plausible deniability. When a toxic person targets someone who's already isolated, who's already on the periphery of social circles, any accusations become easier to dismiss. The loner's history of avoiding people becomes evidence that they're the problem. Their discomfort with the toxic person's behavior gets reframed as their inability to handle normal relationships. Their attempts to set boundaries get painted as the antisocial tendencies everyone always suspected. The toxic person weaponizes society's existing suspicion of those who choose solitude. But here's what toxic people consistently underestimate. Loners are alone by choice, and that choice comes with power they don't recognize until it's too late. The same person who can thrive in solitude can also walk away from toxicity without the fear that keeps others trapped. The same independence toxic people tried to destroy is exactly what allows loners to eventually see through the manipulation and leave. When a loner finally recognizes what's happening, the departure is often swift and absolute. They don't need closure. They don't need the last word. They don't need to make the toxic person understand. They simply return to the solitude that was working perfectly fine before the intrusion. They close the door they never should have opened and reinforce the boundaries they temporarily lowered. The dark reason toxic people target loners isn't because loners are easy prey. It's because they represent everything toxic people will never achieve: genuine self-sufficiency, inner peace, and the strength to exist without needing to control or consume others. Toxic people see that light and want to extinguish it, not realizing that some lights don't need external fuel to burn. So if you're a loner and someone's suddenly paying intense attention, offering everything you didn't know you wanted, making your independence seem like a problem they're uniquely qualified to solve, ask yourself one question: why now? Why you? And if the answer feels like they're trying to fill a void you didn't know you had, that's not connection, that's a con. And the healthiest thing you can do is remember that the solitude you built wasn't loneliness, it was protection.
And maybe, just maybe, you built those walls for exactly this reason.